How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Marvel Movies podcast. I have lost track what episode that we're on, but now we have finally started the main MCU with the very first Iron Man movie. And right off the bat, gotta say, thank fuck that this one was as good as I remember it being, because I needed a break from the shitty ones that we've been watching lately. So I'm once again joined by Ethan. Say hello.
Hello, everybody.
And we're gonna be going over how great that the first Iron Man was. So, again, first thoughts, I think this was so much better than everything we've been watching lately. What do you think?
I definitely think so.
Yeah, it was like, Jesus Christ, like, see, watching this one compared to, like, last week is just like, Jesus Christ. And
yeah, it's definitely been better than all of the ones we've watched so far.
yeah, and what I think is really funny is that Spider-Man 3 came out 1 year before this one. Like, that's just so weird to me. Like, these feel like two completely different times, so I don't...
Yeah, they really do. I didn't even know that. Like, that's how different the quality is, I should say.
Like, it's so crazy. But, like, yeah. So, this one definitely is a gigantic step up. And it's so much of a step up that we're going to change up the format a little bit. Because in the other ones, we started off with, like, positives mixed and then the negatives. Because for all those, we had a lot of negatives, so we're like, oh yeah, we'll save those towards the end. But in this one, we're going to start off with negatives and then move up to positives, because they're, for me personally, I don't have any negatives with this movie. I know Ethan has a couple, so we're only going to start off with like the negatives, then move on to mix, and move on to positives, because I don't want to end on like two negatives for this one. So yeah. So, alrighty, so Ethan, what is your first negative?
Well, first off, I would like to say that I've seen this movie hundreds of times at this point.
Yeah.
So when I was going into this, I'm like, oh, this movie again. But after having my palate cleansed with the last 6 movies we've watched, I have to say this is a phenomenal movie compared to those, because I thought, I've seen this so many times, I'm not going to enjoy it, but I enjoyed it a lot. So when I say I have negatives, I mean they are so minor that it's just down to movie magic problems, and that's basically it. So I'm just going to say that, like, in the beginning, there's a lot of, all the missiles and stuff. So when they start shooting and, like, they're hitting missiles in the background and they're not blowing up, I mean, I get it. You don't want to blow up the main character with a missile, so gotta have some movie magic in there. And, him falling out of the sky and being perfectly fine, just coming out with a broken arm.
Yeah, that was funny.
It's these minor things that just, I've seen it so many times, so I'm gonna critique that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think literally that's my only negative in this movie. So,
yeah, it's just so funny to me. Like, again, like, it's hard to like really describe like how big of a jump that it is from the other ones. To the fact that like I was honestly shocked, because like I was kind of like you, where I was like, man, I've seen this movie since it came out, and I was very small when this came out. Cause my mom, right, like, she, like, loved Robert Downey Jr., so, like, she watched all of his movies, and so when this came out, my mom's like, dude, we gotta watch the new Robert Downey Jr. movie, and little, like, something, however old I was, like, 6-year-old kid, was like, okay, yeah, sure. So I've watched this movie for, so many years now. So, like, I was at that point where I'm like, oh, yeah, well, I'm ready to watch it again, but it's probably not going to be as good as I remember it being. But especially watching it this time, and again, after seeing the dog shit that we've been going through the past few weeks, it's like, Jesus. Like, the quality cannot be, like, undermined, because, going from the shitty X-Men 3, going from shitty Spider-Man 2 to shitty X-Men 3 to shitty Spider-Man 3, all in a row just kind of like beats the shit out of you after a while because you're like, oh my god, I fucking hate this. And then finally going to this, it's like, God, like it's like this is a fucking great movie. So yeah, so for me, like I only have like one mix, and it's legit just a meme. So it's just really funny that like after I finished this movie, I was like, holy shit, I don't have any negatives, which I think is really impressive.
Yeah, definitely. So what I really have to say that this movie definitely held up.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like I said, going into this, I was like, oh, I don't know if it's going to be good or not, but in my opinion, it really holds up, and like it's still very enjoyable to watch, like I said before. So if you don't have any negatives, I'll go into a mixed.
Cool.
I think the only mix I have is okay. We'll have a few. I think that I'm gonna start with S.H.I.E.L.D. because in later movies, obviously, they're like this huge. They're like the biggest defense company or whatever.
Yep.
So when they're introduced, just Phil being a fucking joke.
Yeah.
I mean, love him, but still, like, S.H.I.E.L.D. is just introduced as a joke, which I kind of find weird. But I mean, the end credit scene with Nick Fury and everything kind of brings it back. But again, it's just they're introduced as a joke, and I feel like that's a very interesting way to put it. When like they're one of the biggest like defense companies in that world.
Yeah, so I get that, and they don't even have their name yet.
Kind of. Yeah, that's true. So, I just felt like that was a weird way to introduce them, but I mean, it didn't affect the movie in any way. So.
Yeah, they were really like Phil Coulson only showed up like twice, and I don't even know if they said like his full name. I think they just called him Agent Coulson in this one. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, and then the other one I had was the 10 Rings.
Yeah,
didn't show up as this big threat, and then they're just gone for a while. So
yeah,
I mean, like it's those minor things that there's not really a big villain.
Yeah,
except for Stain, which he's only. Well, okay, I guess I have another mix then too because I wanted to talk about that where there's no like transition into him being a bad guy.
Yeah, he just becomes.
It's just like just a flick of the switch and he's bad now. Like, I mean, cool, we didn't see that coming, but you know, I mean, it wasn't played out that well in my opinion.
Yeah,
like his story should have been built out more. But honestly, the way it went, it was fine. But I would have liked to see more from him.
Yeah.
Instead of just being, oh, I just want your, like I'm your best friend or whatever. I'm your partner or whatever, and then just going, just straight killing people. So.
Connor, fuck my neck, Connor.
Yeah, I mean, his character again should have been built out more. Just again, like there's no real big threats in this one, and also it's an origin story, so I get that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I agree with that though. He was very like changed really fast. So. And what I think is funny too is that like at the beginning of the movie, like, is when he gets like unmasked by he gets the sack taken off of his head, and like the guys are just telling stuff. What I think is funny too is that like if you spoke that language, you would have gotten like the whole movie spoiled for you in the first 5 minutes. So people who speak that language are like, yo, wait, what the fuck? So I just like that's funny.
Yeah. And I'll go back to this in positive, but I like how they did the callback to that. Like I found that like they're using the whole movie. They're not just pushing forward. So we'll go back to that in positive. But another one, going back to personality, I think Tony's personality did change. I get the first change because he was, in a cave for 3 months, so obviously he's gonna have an extreme personality change.
Yeah.
But then he went from no more weapons to switching to building a whole suit with more weapons. So
yeah.
it was a pretty quick switch up that isn't really explained.
Yeah, I think it
like,
was I think it was mainly because he wanted it, and it's like, oh, if it's in my hands, then it can't hurt anybody. Because all the other weapons he was selling to people, but he's like, oh, I can build one more, but for me, that no one else can use.
Yeah, it just felt weird because he was all about no more weapons, and then he just built another weapon out of nowhere, so...
Yeah, and again, Obadiah at the end was like, oh yeah, you try to rid the world of weapons, and it's the greatest one. It's like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he really did.
Yeah.
So that was... it's just these minor things that I'm looking at, so...
Yeah, and they don't ruin the movie at all, so...
No, they don't.
And going to the Ten Rings, I'd say that, yeah, I think they're mixed for me too, because they're just kind of there. And it's also, like, and, okay, how do I say that? Like, they're not just kind of there, like, they are important to the movie's plot, but for, like, future knowledge, it's like, okay, this is really, like, the only time that we see them until so many years later. So it's just kind of funny to me that, like, even in, like, because, again, like, Shang-Chi, obviously, is heavily related to the Ten Rings. But it's funny because I'm like, they don't, like, this Ten Rings and the Ten Rings from Shang-Chi feel nothing alike. Like, they don't feel like the same thing at all. So I just think it's kind of weird that with, like, future knowledge, obviously. Like, again, I can't fault the movie for it because I didn't know any better. But just in context of the universe, it's just weird because I'm like, oh, yeah, those two feel nothing alike, so it's just... That's a little thing for me that I just think is weird. But that's not this movie's fault, it's just future knowledge.
Yeah. Also, it's the first MCU movie, so of course it's
exactly. So.
Have its little rough stuff, obviously, so... Yeah, I mean, of course there's gonna be plot holes like that, but overall this movie is really good, so... Can't fault it for that.
Yeah. Alright, so I got one more mixed, and this is the meme thing, right? So, every single fucking time Gwyneth Paltrow came on screen, all I could think about was her fucking pussy candle. every time. I just kept looking at it, and I'm like, damn, I can smell that shit from here just looking at you. So I was like, oh, God. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, that somehow that kept coming up, and it wasn't even in the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, going off of Pepper, I thought she was an okay. Like, there were some points where she was actually a good character, and then other points where she was meh.
Yeah.
So, I mean... Overall, she's a better character than MJ was, so I'm not really complaining. But I think she does get better in future movies, so I'm not really complaining.
Yeah, and she's still not bad in this one, I don't think. It's just like she's kind of weird because like sometimes she's cool, and other like the only time I didn't really like her was at like the very end, was when she was like, "No, you'll die." It's like bruh, like just press the fucking button.
Yeah. Well. One of the things I have to say about that scene is that she's just standing there and then making like screaming. She's not moving or anything. No. She's just standing there. So Tony, I mean that wasn't that wasn't my favorite scene with her in it. Yeah. So I mean definitely could have been better, but it didn't ruin the whole movie. No. So
because I was like
not really complaining.
Because that was like the only thing for me where I was like, oh, that was weird. But the entire rest of the movie, she was fine, so I didn't have any issues with it.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so is that all you got for mix?
Let's see. Yes, I believe so.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, we're 14 minutes in, and we're we're pretty much it's all gonna be positives from here on out, guys. So again,
Let's go.
it just goes to show that this movie is so much fucking better than like every single one before. We'll compare them at the very end to the other ones, but just in general, yeah, this movie's fucking great. So, what is your first positive?
Well, let's see. I'm gonna say that just the overall suit design was phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
I love to see the progression from his first suit, and then he starts the suit building montage, if you will. Like I like to see that he's actually building the suit. It's not just, oh, he built it in the cave, we don't have to show him build it again.
Yeah.
I like that he went through the trial and error and all the mistakes he made building it. And you got to see that he actually was a genius, not just a rich billionaire. So, like, he's actually a smart character, and he was able to build out, like, this amazing suit that he can, fight wars in, So,
Yeah.
I like to see that they showed that he could build it on his own, and it's not just, oh, he has the suit now. How did he make it? Nah, you don't need to see that. I like that they showed it, and it made sense, Like, it's not just, oh, he knows exactly how to build it. He's trying and failing to build it, so... And once he actually does it, it feels... I don't know, it just feels...
Earned.
Like you saw... Yeah, earned it, yeah. Yeah, so that's what I have to say about the suit. Like, and also the design of the suit is great.
Oh my god, yeah, it's beautiful. Like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's funny, because, like, this is, like, I honestly think is, like, the best Iron Man suit that we ever get. Which is really funny, because, like, even though other movies, I think, like, look fine, it's just, like, this one looks real. Like, even in, like, Infinity War and Endgame, it didn't look entirely real, but this one, like, did. Like, it looked like, oh, yeah, I feel like I could see that, like, walking down the street. I'll be like, oh, yeah. But, like, the ones in, like, the other later movies, I'm like, oh, yeah, I can see it, but it looks a little too CG. But in this one, like, I don't notice the CGI at all, so, yeah.
Yeah. And again, back to him building the suit. I like it in this movie, because they don't show it in other movies.
Yeah.
They just don't show how he makes it. So, like, in another movie... Sorry.
You're good.
He'll come out with this... he'll come out with this brand new suit, like in Infinity War. He had, like, the nanotech suit, but we don't get to see how that's made, so...
Yeah, it's like, where the fuck did you get that? Like, okay.
Yeah, he just invented nanotech in his spare time.
Yeah. As you do,
That's what I like about this movie, is that you get to see the progression instead of him just getting so powerful so quickly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it was really well done. And like you said, like, the designs are really good. Like, the first suit was really nice, and seeing it move up and become the one at the very end was really cool. So... Yeah, I just think they all looked awesome. Like, I didn't notice the CGI at all. Like, there were, like, some points, like, that was probably CGI. But, for the most part, like, I was like, yeah, this looks legit. Which I think is really, like, a testament to how, like, far, like, CGI had come to that point. Because,
Definitely, yeah.
even in, like, the very last movie, which was Spider-Man 3, like, there was so many times I was like, yep, that's CGI. Yep, that's CGI. Oh, none of that looks real. And yet in this one, it's just really funny, because I'm like, damn, all of this looks real. So, I just think that was really cool.
Yeah. And it's funny, we're complimenting the CGI now, and then we have She-Hulk who's sliding across the floor.
I don't understand it, bro. Like, this shit came out in 2008. What the fuck? Fuck She-Hulk. We'll get to that later, but fuck that shit.
Yeah. Alright, so, if you have another positive?
Yes, I do. I'm gonna say something that we haven't really said, but I think the music in this movie is really fucking good.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in all the other movies, we haven't really talked about the music that much, because honestly, like, it didn't really feel like it mattered to talk about. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, except for like Spider-Man 3, because the Venom song is just really fucking funny. But like in this one,
Yeah.
like the music is like really good. Like it feels like Iron Man music, and it feels like it fits the tone so well.
Oh yeah.
And they only use like AC/DC in like the beginning and the end of the movie. Like they use Iron Man at the very end, which is cool. I think that was by Black Sabbath actually, but they have that at the very end, which was really cool. But I'm glad that they like didn't like rely on licensed songs the entire time, because I know that Spider-Man did to a degree. So it was just like to have this one not really like rely on license and have like its own like really good soundtrack, I think was really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about music because like they can't play it, cause or else I'll get copyright struck. But
Yeah.
but just the main theme of the movie, like if you have like the DVD, like the sound that plays in the main menu is like pretty much the main theme, and that's really good.
Yeah.
And I wish I would play like throughout like the rest of the movies too, because I think this is like the only movie where like that main theme plays, I think. So
I think so.
it's just kind of sad. I'm like, damn, I wish this would have like followed through, because I know in like the future Spider-Man movies, like his main theme plays throughout all three of his movies. So it's just like, oh man, I wish the same thing would have happened for Iron Man, because songs are really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember we're just sitting there taking notes, just jamming out to the,
Yeah, legit.
to the home screen music. So
Yeah.
it was really good. I enjoyed it. Like, sound design is like necessary. It needs to be good for a movie. So having a good soundtrack will take it very far. So they did a really good job with it. So
and speaking on the sound design, like just like the sounds in the movie, again, I don't normally compliment this kind of stuff, because I don't think it's like that big a deal sometimes. So when they do it like really well, that's when I'll call it out, because I'm like, damn, I remembered that. Like when he was in the cave and was hammering down on like the the mask, and then when he like whenever he would land and like that iconic sound would play, it's like, damn, that's fucking cool as shit. Like, oh my god. So
yeah, it's the sound that you recognize the sound and you're like, oh, that's Iron Man. That's like that's what you need for a good movie and like a good series to go far. You need to have that recognizable trait to it. So you have I love that they put those details in there, because it really, again, took it very far. Yeah. So
because whenever I hear that sound, like legit, I'm gonna be like, oh shit, that's Iron Man. That's fucking cool. So
yeah,
it's like they did a fantastic job with that. So
yeah, definitely.
All right, what do you have?
So I'm gonna go with some callbacks that they did. I liked, again, like we said before, the video where like you see the scene at the beginning and then you see the video on the computer later in the movie. I like that they used a scene from the movie to bring up a major plot point, because again, that's how they found out that Stain was the one who like hired them to kill him or kidnap him or whatever. So like that, using the callback was a great idea. And then again with the ice problem, that was
cool.
Yeah, so like they're flying up in the air, and then the suit freezes, obviously. So when he did that callback, I thought that was really, really good, because it showed the difference between the maker and then just someone using the machine without knowing all of its defects. So again, that really tied the whole movie together. Like when you bring back a scene from the beginning and then, you know, referencing it at the end, really, again, like I said, ties it together. So
and definitely does a really good job with that. Alright, what else do I have? I got a lot, so I'm just like, what do I want to talk about now? Okay, I'll say that this one felt like an actual movie.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it kind of goes with what you were just saying, that everything like ties in together very nice. Like like you said, with like the video at the beginning and having it call back later and just referencing everything that the movie already established, I think is what a good movie should do, where like they show all this stuff but all of it's important. Like every scene should be important. It shouldn't just be like, oh yeah, we're just gonna show this because just, I don't know, why not. But like in this movie, like every scene, it means something. So I just think
Yeah.
it feels like an actual movie at that point. Because again, comparing it to everything else that we've seen, those ones didn't feel like movies. They felt like a series of events, and it was just like so nice to be like, wow, this is an actual movie. This isn't just like a comic book thing. It's like, oh, this is an actual movie. So I thought that was really, I thought that was really cool because the other ones didn't really feel like that to me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like you said, a series of events in the first ones, and then we come to this one and it's all tied together.
Yeah.
So it really, again, pushed it far. So.
Yeah.
So let's see, what else do I have? I actually liked Rhodey in this movie much better.
Yep.
Like in the future movies, obviously it's a different actor. So I mean, first time I watched it, I didn't even pick up on that. So but I actually liked him better in this movie than the other actor in the other movies.
Yeah.
So I just felt like he played it better than the other dude did. So I don't know. I just, in my opinion, he's much better in this movie, and I kind of sad that he's not in the future movies.
Yep.
But
yeah, I completely agree with that. Like it's really weird because like I liked Don Cheadle. Like I like him. Like he's fine to me. But like after watching this one this time, I was like, shit. I feel like if Terrence Howard had like stayed, like he would have been like a perfect Rhodey. And so it's just weird because watching this, I'm like, damn, this dude's like, especially like after he gives Tony like gets him up and he goes to get Stain and he looks at like the other suit and he's like, next time, baby. Like I'm like, damn, that would have been cool. That would have been cool to see. So it is kind of sad.
yeah.
Hold on. I think I'm trying to think here. There was a reason why he left, and I think it was about money. I think. Because at this point in Marvel's career, they weren't making people sign like 10-year contracts or anything, I don't think. So that's why he was able to leave. But I think it was like a money dispute. Because again, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure he made more money than Robert Downey Jr. in this movie. And it's because he was a bigger actor. And we'll get to Robert Downey Jr. later, and why he didn't make as much. But I'm pretty sure he got paid more. And I think he was like demanding more money for like the Iron Man 2, and they were like, "Hey, we can't pay you all that money, so sorry." And I think that's just why he left, because of the pay dispute. So that's what which sucks.
That sucks.
Yeah, because like, you would have been really fucking cool. So yeah, like you said, I 1000% preferred him in this one. He feels more like a military guy, but like a chill military guy. So it's just like, yeah, he did a really good job.
Yeah.
Rip Terrence Howard.
Yeah.
So what do you have next?
Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, yeah. So, the final fight, I thought they did really well because they already set him up with a disadvantage. Because he's using the arc reactor that he built in the cave, right?
Yep.
So he's doesn't have as much power as he needs to power the suit fully. So, like, again, he's already at a full disadvantage to the huge suit that he has to fight.
Yeah.
So throughout the whole fight, he's losing power. And again, I've already seen this movie, so I wasn't, on my seat whether, like, is he going to win, is he going to lose? But, like, if it was your first time watching it,
oh yeah,
and without any future knowledge, you would be. I feel like they did the whole sequence so well that you wouldn't know if he was gonna win or lose.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that they did that really well, because you see him, like, at the end he's flies up into the sky to freeze the suit, obviously, and he loses all the power. So when Stain comes back down and he's perfectly fine and fighting ready or whatever.
Yeah, that was
like,
kind of weird.
Tony's already, like, taking off his suit.
Yeah.
So that he can, stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
So in this whole sequence, you're like, oh, he did it, but he didn't. And then he comes back down still ready to fight. And with the arc reactor, Tony's like, oh, he's hanging on, and he's telling Pepper to do whatever to the arc reactor to blow it up, I guess. And obviously that could kill him. So you don't know if he's gonna live or die in that moment. So
yeah.
I feel like they did it really well, putting you on your edge, putting you on the edge of your seat. So I think that sequence was one of the best in the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I definitely agree with that. Because it's just funny sometimes, like, because in a lot of the movies it's like, oh, why didn't he do that? Like, hold on, I gotta sneeze. Hold Huh? Am I gonna sneeze? Guess not. Okay. Anyway, so, like, in other movies and stuff, like future Marvel movies, there's a point where you're just like, okay, why didn't he do that? Why didn't he do that? Why didn't they, like, just do that one thing? But it makes a lot of sense in this one, because he's still recovering from getting paralyzed, I guess, whatever the fuck that device, that thing was that he used. And he's using, like you said, like that arc reactor that's, like, very low on power. So it's really good to, like, have a lot of stakes in it, because if he was, like, at full power, he definitely would have beat the shit out of that dude in, like, 2 seconds. So it was really nice to be like, okay, yeah, we're gonna give you a final battle that seems heavily one-sided, but really it's not. So I think, like you said, they did a very, very good job just showing, like, each of their strengths and weaknesses that they have, compared to, like, how other movies before did it, where it just seemed like, what the fuck, why is this happening? Okay. But in this one, like, it seemed very, like, damn, this is intense and actually has stakes, so I thought it was cool.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to, you said, like, future movies, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? I definitely think that the Marvel movies were much better before they were bought up by Disney. Because Disney tried to, in my opinion, they tried to, like, kind of dumb it down, I guess, to make it more child-friendly. Where in this movie, he's literally just killing guys left and right. So, like in this, they really kind of child-proofed it, I guess. So, like, in future movies, he doesn't have the freedom to just kill people. So, I mean, I honestly enjoyed this much. I think, sad to say, it's gonna go a bit downhill. But not a lot. But it definitely will. So it's weird to see it in this, like, he's after, like, we're watching She-Hulk right now and seeing everything that's happening with that, and then you go to this where it's, again, he's killing people. So it's interesting to see the difference between now and then. So
it really is. Like, again, the whole reason we're doing this is just to have a whole retrospective on Marvel, just to see their strengths and weaknesses and where they're at. And it's so funny watching She-Hulk right now and being like, man, this show fucking blows, and then watching this and you're like, man, this shit's fucking awesome. So it's really sad. But again, like, this movie, like you said, is, like, one of the greatest Marvel movies, and honestly, in my opinion, one of the greatest, like, movies of all time, just in general. So it's just funny to be like, damn, did Marvel really peak at its first movie? Like, it's kind of like, I personally don't think so. Like, spoilers, I prefer, like, Infinity War and Endgame over this one, but like, this one just, like, is really good, and like you were saying, like it's definitely a lot more mature than the rest of the other movies. And I think that's just so weird because watching like what they're making now, I'm like, dude, like this shit's like for like 10-year-olds, like, which I think is kind of embarrassing. And like not all of them, obviously, but like especially like after watching Miss Marvel and then watching this one back to back, not this one, She-Hulk back to back. It's just like watching it, I'm like, damn, this is like kiddie stuff. And it's just
and
it's so
I mean
weird.
also Miss Marvel too. When you compare these two, they're so different.
Yep.
Like that, Miss Marvel really felt like just a teen drama, and that was it.
Yep.
So again, when you compare those two, it's still a huge difference.
Yep.
So, just like, and you could also compare this to Daredevil, which, you know, is like so violent, and you know. So when you compare these two, I'd say they're, like, it's weird to say that they're kind of on the same level.
No, you're right, though. Like, you're right.
I mean, like, if they had kept the way they do with Iron Man in this one, like, if they had kept that throughout all their movies and stuff, I feel like it would have, like, they would be doing so much better than they are now.
Yeah.
Because right now they're getting so much shit for all of the... Marvel TV shows.
Yeah, and the movies,
I feel like
too.
if they had just... Oh, yeah, definitely. If they just kept the way they're doing it now, I think it would have gone over so much better. Which kind of sucks, because you see now that Disney's embracing their, like, rated R stuff, because, like, with Wolverine and Deadpool and everything.
Yeah.
Like, they're embracing the more mature side of, like, TV and movies and stuff. So I think if they had done that sooner... instead of pushing it off and trying to, you know, dumb down... I don't want to say dumb down, but I don't have a better word for it right now. Just dumb down... Yeah, like, dumb down the content to make it more for children. I think it would have gone so much better for them.
Yeah.
So, like, seeing this movie, I was, like, actually surprised of how well they did it. Like, it felt like it wasn't for children. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, like there's even a sex scene. There's a sex scene in the beginning. So
yeah, that's true.
And when was the next time we saw a sex scene? I think like
I don't know.
So it's like, huh?
Yeah, so it was refreshing to see this movie. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get you too. And even like we'll get into like the jokiness of Robert Downey Jr. in a second, but this movie's funny in like an actual funny way. Like even though some other movies, like I still laugh watching the new ones now because sometimes they make like good jokes, but most of the time in like Marvel now, like I hear a lot of people complain that like the jokes never land. And while I don't think that they never land for me, like there's a lot of them that I just don't laugh at, only because I'm like, that's just weird. Like, okay, like they don't, it doesn't extremely bother me, but there's a lot of them like they can go off on like 20 fucking jokes a second, and I'm like, okay, only one of those I thought was funny. And even like
I've
watching,
seen that.
Yeah. And, like, watching She-Hulk now, too. Like, it's supposed to be a comedy, but, bro, I only laugh, like, at the end credit scene in, like, the first episode. So, it's like, this is not funny. But in this one, it's, like, funny in, like, a real way. Like, they're not trying to make, like, 30 jokes just to get people to pretend that it's a good movie. It's like, oh, yeah, we're gonna actually be funny. And, of course, Robert Downey Jr. is, like, the main guy who's hilarious in this movie, but...
Yeah.
It's just like when he jokes, it feels like real, but when everyone else does it later, it just feels forced to like kind of like distract the audience by being like, "Oh yeah, we know this is boring, so we're just gonna crack a joke to make you laugh. Please enjoy our thing."
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like now. So like watching this one, where like they don't need to fall back on humor, which is well, unfortunately, shitty humor that they have now. Or like now in this movie, it was like humor just to be funny. And it wasn't like a crutch that they're falling back on like they do now.
Yeah, and you can definitely see it like in the first, like literally first 5 minutes of the movie. He's just being funny.
Yep.
like the whole sequence. Oh, you're a woman. I would have not have guessed that. You know, like that was actually funny because, and like the whole selfie thing.
Yeah.
And then it goes into action.
Yep.
Which was a perfect transition, in my opinion, because they're like they're showing, oh, they're just normal people, you know, like they're showing the balance of like a normal human, and then also they're in a war zone, so obviously stuff's gonna happen.
Yep.
So when it does that transition, it went, in my opinion, it was perfect.
Definitely.
And yeah, and you just don't see that in like the Marvel today, which really sucks.
Yeah.
So
it's really disappointing because again, like, this movie's fucking amazing, and it's just it sucks watching it though, because I'm watching it, I'm like, oh god, I love this so much. I really wish the rest of the series would have kept up like something like this, you know, because like even like a lot of Phase 2 stuff I'm not the biggest fan of. Phase 3 I think is like my favorite phase. Again, I'll have to go back and watch them all to really say, of course, but like there are a lot of movies in there that I liked, but most of the time I'm like, no, this one's still better than them. So it's just so weird to me, where I'm like, damn, they made like such a great movie early on, but could never really like fully capture the feel of this one ever again, which is kind of like, damn.
Yeah.
It's 2022, almost 2023, and like still like this movie is definitely like in like the top 10 greatest Marvel movies of all time. So it's just, and this came out in 2008, so it's just like, wow, that's just so weird.
Yeah. And it honestly, like, I just think that Robert Downey Jr.'s like sarcastic humor in this movie really.
Yeah, let's get into him now. Let's get into how great he is.
Yeah. Yeah, like I enjoy his humor a lot because I'm more my humor is more sarcastic humor, so I can connect with his humor more.
Really?
No, of course not. No, I mean, no, but honestly, his humor, I really connected with his humor, so I thought the jokes were amazing. They didn't go over my head.
Yeah. So. Yeah. He was really good in this movie. Like, this is what he's known for now. Every time you see him, he's Iron Man. Like, he does he was perfectly cast. Like, there's a lot of stuff, and I know everyone's said this before, but legit where it's like, everyone's being like, oh, who's gonna be like the new like Wolverine? Who's gonna be the new this? Who's gonna be the new that? It's like most of the time I'm like, okay, yeah, for like Hugh Jackman, it's like I see him as Wolverine, but there's also a part of me where it's like, oh, there could be another Wolverine. There could be. I would prefer it to be Hugh Jackman, but I can see other ones. But if someone like, okay, yeah, we're gonna recast Iron Man, I'd be like, no, you're fucking not. You can't. Like, Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, so...
Yeah, you can't recast him when he's been playing him for, what, like, 12 years, maybe?
Yeah.
So, when you've been in a role that long, there's no way to, you know, recast him, because that's what he's known for, and that's... basically, he is Iron Man at this point.
Yeah, like, I can't see anybody else play him, like, ever. Like, it's like, no, this is... Iron Man. Like, you can't replace it. Like, all like the Spider-Man shit. Everyone to this day is still debating, like, oh, who's the best Spider-Man? Like, there's not a definitive answer. And I think it's funny, because even though as much as I love Tom Holland, and as much as I loved Andrew Garfield in No Way Home, and even though I'm really mixed on Tobey Maguire, I still think he's funny. So it's like, that part of me where it's like, yeah, they all have their own individual charms and shit, but... I can still see a better Spider-Man being made than the three of them. Like, there could be a better one. But for Iron Man, it's like, no, I can't see someone else being as good for the role as Robert Downey Jr. is. So it just goes to show that he's perfect.
Yeah, and you also see it, like, most people who know Iron Man and Marvel stuff now, it's always been Robert Downey Jr. for them. Yeah. So it's like, you can't take away... that, because no one's gonna like recasting him when he's like not the original, obviously, but he's like, for most people, he's the first Iron Man anyone's seen. So you can't recast that because he's made such an impact on Marvel in a whole. So I mean, you can't give his role, which is such an iconic role, to someone else who might just be so bad that they've ruined the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because hopefully they don't try to recast him, because that would just be a huge mistake.
Yeah, like I heard rumors that they were planning on doing Tom Cruise for a Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, yeah,
and I mean, like, that would have been funny for, like, a one-off. But if they ever were like, oh, yeah, he's a new one, I'd be like, yeah, okay, no.
Yeah, no. Especially, I mean, Tom Cruise is, I'd say, a good actor.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, he's not... Yeah, but him as Iron Man, I just can't see it.
No, me neither.
Because he's just... They're two very different people.
Yeah.
So, they just... You can't... You know... I don't know. You just can't replace him, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
you know?
I get you.
So
for, again, on Robert Downey Jr., I think what makes me respect this movie millions of times more is that this movie should not have worked. It should not have worked. Because, I'm pretty sure people know this already, but in case you don't, Robert Downey Jr. was acting for, like, years before this movie, but he got into a lot of fucking shit. Like, he got into a lot of bad shit before the movies, because he got into, like, alcoholism, he got into all these awful drugs, he got arrested a lot of times, he went into someone's house, passed out on their bed, got arrested. His reputation was pretty much fucked. Like, he was a washed out druggie, pretty much, is what he was. So no one really, like, respected him because he completely fucked up his whole life. And then when this movie was announced, and, like, the director was Jon Favreau, who at this point, his most successful movie, I'm pretty sure, was Elf with Will Ferrell. So it's just like, So everyone's like, okay. Again, I'm part of this crowd because I was like 5 years old when this fucking movie came out. But, like, I've read a lot of people's thoughts where they're like, yeah, this movie shouldn't have worked because Robert Downey Jr. was a washed-out druggie at this point, and the guy who directed Elf was going to direct it. So in all, like, things, this movie should not have worked. But it ended up being legit one of the greatest movies of all time. So it's just like, I respect the hell out of it because it had everything going against it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it just somehow was fucking awesome. So
yeah, it just overcame all of the doubts that everyone had of it. So, and, like, this was Robert Downey Jr.'s redemption movie, I'd say. Like,
legitimately.
This is where he turned everything around, so I was happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, I know, and he's like one of the most popular people on the entire fucking planet right now, so
I know, yeah.
It's just like, yep, this turned his whole life around, so I'm really happy about that. Because he deserves it. And sure, he went through some fucked up shit, but he's still a great guy, so.
Yeah. And it's funny to see or think about that, like, if this movie never took off, then we wouldn't have had this MCU that everyone loves so much.
Yep, exactly.
And, you know, like, we wouldn't be doing this podcast right now if that never took off, so.
It's just really weird. And again, it all rests on Robert Downey Jr.'s shoulders. If they cast anybody else, I really do think this movie would have bombed. Because he's, like, legit
honestly
the main guy. And again, another reason why in this podcast I don't have a lot of negatives is because Robert Downey Jr. is pretty much in, like, every single scene. So it's like, that can't be a negative because he's just so fucking good in this movie every time he's on screen. Which is, again, most of the fucking movie. So it's just like, he's just everywhere. So if it was anybody else, this movie probably wouldn't have worked. So it's just so weird.
Yeah, and obviously, like, he's in most of all of the MCU projects until his character dies, which I think that's when Marvel started to go downhill because they didn't have this huge icon of the whole MCU that they've, you know, it was their origin, right? So, honestly, I think that's why the MCU's failing is because they, you know, killed them off. So
because they don't have a main character anymore. So it's like, oh shit.
Exactly, and also because they killed Captain America too.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And they turned Thor into a joke, and they turned Hulk into a joke, and
I know,
Black Widow's dead. And it's just like, man, they really.
It's kind of sad because I know what they're going for. I'm pretty sure they're just going for the hard reset, kind of moving into the next generation of heroes, obviously. And I'm pretty sure the only one that we have left who's not a joke is kind of Hawkeye.
Yep.
Which, honestly, I enjoyed watching the Hawkeye series.
Yeah, me
which
too.
a lot of people, didn't really like it. But I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah,
I like
I enjoyed it
seeing
until
how-
the end, so...
yeah. But it's... I know in comics, Hawkeye's been the, like, transition between generations.
Mhm.
So, I'm glad they're keeping that. I'm also glad that Spider-Man was introduced in the first generation, I should say, and then is moving into this new one, because we're keeping a character who's just gonna mature, and I hate to say become the next Iron Man, but I think that's what they're going for.
Yep. And that's something that we'll get into more of that when we talk about like his movies, but I know a lot of people hated the fact that they kept calling him the next Iron Man. It's like, oh, he's not Iron Man. But what I think is like no, that's not what they're trying to do. They're not making him like legit Iron Man, but they're trying to make him Iron Man, who is the main character. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So like we'll get into that whenever people complain about Far From Home, but like I really do think you're right. Like it's like no, he's now the main character. So
yeah.
But yeah, so Robert Downey Jr. is a god among men. Like he's legit the heart and soul of this movie. He's fantastic.
Definitely.
And I guess, again, back on Jon Favreau. It's funny because he's Happy Hogan, of course, but he's in this movie like for like 2 scenes. So I think that's funny.
Yeah.
Because he's like in the movies a lot.
Yeah, and it's funny because well, actually not again, but I'm gonna go into like the way the characters. Did I say characters?
Yeah, the characters.
The way the characters connect on the screen, how they work well together.
Yeah.
So, like you can see between Tony and Happy, even though they're not on screen together so much, you can see that they have a good relationship because like he's getting into the car like the first after like whatever he's leaving the casino or whatever, and the reporter comes up to him, and Happy's like, "She's hot." So he turns back around. It's like, "Oh, hello." It's like they have good chemistry and they work well together. So I liked seeing that, and also, like they're racing to get to the airport.
Yeah, that was funny.
They're like joking the whole time. So it's like the characters are so well connected in this movie that, again, it just holds the movie together even more, which is amazing. And that I honestly think that's why it went so far, is because the characters actually worked well together.
Yep, and Robert Downey Jr. has chemistry with everybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this... I feel like the whole... It was just cast perfectly, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Like, every character was cast perfectly, so that's why it worked so well.
Yeah, I get that. And, it's just... I feel like it's funny, because I feel like whenever Iron Man is on screen with anybody, he instantly boosts them to be, like, entertaining to watch, too. Like, I bet, like, if he talked to, like, Miss Marvel... And if he talked to She-Hulk, I'd like them more, just because he's with them.
Yeah.
So it's just like, this dude can, like, put charm on anybody. So it's just like...
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, and I kind of want to say about Miss Marvel, it's kind of sucks that in the comics, obviously, Miss Marvel's mentor is Captain Marvel, so...
Yeah.
Comics, they work well together. But, yeah, exactly. Brie Larson is terrible.
God, I fucking hate that bitch.
Terrible. Yeah, so I'm not excited for that. And I hope they don't try to make her in a leader role, because please don't. God, no.
I hope they kill her off in a new movie.
Again, her character would have been so much better if she was cast differently. But, that's not Iron Man, so we'll get to that later. But just again, if Iron Man was still alive in the MCU, I think the whole MCU would benefit from it.
Yeah, definitely. I understand why they did it.
Yeah, and that being said, I don't want them to bring him back.
No, please, God,
don't do that.
Yeah.
So, So they've made their decision, so they have to go with it. But in my opinion, he should have stuck around because he's the one who carries.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say he's the one who carries the whole MCU.
And you're not wrong. He does. He really does. Like, even in the movie he's not in, he still is. You can feel his influence around. So it's just like, shit. That's fucking cool.
Yeah, that's sadly to say something they've lost in these movies.
Yep.
Because they're trying to, again, they're moving on to the new generation of heroes, so they're leaving it behind. But
yeah,
he is just I have to say he's the spirit of the MCU because he was there from the first movie, and then he's been there throughout most of them. So
he's even in the next movie, the one we talk about next week.
Yeah.
So, it's like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny. It's sad. It's just like, damn. Like, he really is like the backbone of the entire thing, and like I said before, this movie would have bombed if it wasn't him. So it's just like, Marvel is Robert Downey Jr. So it's just really good, and it sucks that now it's like, fuck, they don't know what to do, and it's just like, it's really sad.
Yeah, and it's sad to think that we've already seen the peak of Marvel.
Yep.
And hopefully they figure out some way to bring it back with their new 10-year plan.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Because, like, quickly going to, like, the end of my positives, the Avengers setup, that was cool at the end. Like, I liked how they didn't have it in the movie. They only, like you said earlier, alluded to it, with Phil Coulson at the very end. Samuel L. Jackson's like, yo, what's up, bitch? Let's join the Avengers. Like, that was cool. And I think that was really cool. And so, like, having this movie not really be a setup for something, I think was really good. Because, like, we were just talking about, like, now, it's all just set up for something else. And I think it's just, it lost its charm. Because this one's like, oh, this one works as a movie by itself. Like, you can just watch this movie, love it, and not think about, like, oh, but how does this connect to, like, Captain America or Hulk or blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, this is just a good movie on its own. Like, it's not setting up anything, really, until, like, the last minute of the movie. So, it just does a really good job compared to now, where even, like, we're 2 episodes into She-Hulk, and they're already setting up, like a Hulk spin-off, and they're already setting up, like, oh, the next Daredevil, and they're setting up, Thunderbolts.
Yeah, that's
and
true,
it's
they
just
are.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I think it's really weird to see that, like, I think one of Marvel's greatest strong points was that they're all intertwined, but apparently that's also their biggest weakness now, is they don't know how to intertwine them, because everything is just set up, like you said, and I like that. That's a good point, that this movie isn't based off of setup. Like, it's based on Iron Man, and then we get that one end credit scene that's set up. Like, which is what they've done before. Like, they do that throughout. Like, they've set up Thanos and only end credit scenes. So, like, why can't they do that in the shows? I get that the shows are multiple episodes, so you can't have just one end credit scene to tie it all together. But I feel like I think the best way to do setup is with the big cliffhanger at the end, like, oh, who's this? Like, the mysterious figure with the glove or the gauntlet or whatever, you know? So, they've just kind of lost that touch on it, which is sad to see that their biggest strong point has become their biggest weakness.
Yeah, it's really sad. Because going off of that, too, is that, like, so when you set up the Avengers, like, the very next movie focuses on setting up more Avengers. Like, the next movie is Hulk, and then after that we have Thor, Captain America, and then the Avengers. So it worked very well because you instantly got, like, the results of that end credit scene, where it wasn't just like, oh, where is this going? And you have to wait, like, 10 years until you find out what's going on. Like, I think it worked perfectly. And now, like, legit at the end of every movie now, they're setting up something that God knows when that's going to come out. Like, No Way Home, it's like, oh, here comes Venom. like, oh, Eternals, here comes this another, like, here comes Harry Styles, and it's like, oh, cool, when's that gonna happen? God, who knows? Nobody knows. So, like, at everything now, it's like, oh yeah, here comes Hercules, here comes the Thunderbolts, here comes the new chick that Doctor Strange is gonna fuck. It's like, okay, I get it, you're setting up all this shit. But the problem is that what they're doing now, it's like, okay, we're gonna set up 30 different fucking things. And in this one, it's like, oh, we're gonna set up one thing and go there. And even at the end of Avengers, okay, we're gonna set up Thanos, and sure, maybe the next movie's not gonna really delve into that, but eventually it will in like 2 movies or so. But like now, it's like, okay, we're gonna give you a post-credit scene. When are you gonna see that next? Just wait like 5 years and you'll find out. It's like, I don't fucking, like, bruh.
Yeah, like you're saying, like, the way they do it, like, at the beginning was they have Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, Thor, that, with their end credit scenes, and, like, they build up to this movie, the Avengers. So they build up all those 4 movies, or whatever movies, they build up to that movie. Instead of, like, Iron Man moving into the Hulk. Like, they don't take the first movie, then put it in the second one, and then take the second one, put it in the third one.
Yep.
They're each individual stories that will collide at one point.
Yep.
But what they have now is they're taking one point and splitting it off into a bunch of different stories, which will split off into another bunch of different stories. So there's way too many stories to keep up with. And I think that's what the downfall is going to be.
Yeah.
Which really sucks, because they're just trying to put too much out there. That's going to clog up the whole... Everyone's going to get confused and then just give up on it.
Yeah,
is what I think is going to happen.
Seriously, because, like, even right now, you and I, we've watched, like, everything, pretty much. And I'm still fucking confused. Like, I'm like, okay, there's so much shit going on, I don't know what the fucking... I don't know. Like, there's too much going on right now. So it's just, I missed the days where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna set up this. Yep, here it comes. We're still setting it up. Here we go. We're still setting up this one thing, and then it's gonna come in later. So it's just like sucks that now it's like, okay, we're gonna give you like 30 fucking things we're setting up, and it just bums me the hell out, dude.
Yeah.
I'm just burnt out at this point with all the new stuff that they're doing. So it's nice to just go back and watch this one and be like, a good movie on its own. Thank God, I missed it.
Yeah, and it sucks again because they obviously don't have the time to put them all out in a timeline that would make sense. Because there's definitely 2 events that are going on at the same time, but one's gonna come out like I don't know, June, then one's gonna come out like a year later.
Yep.
But no, they're supposed to be at the same time.
Yeah.
Like Black Widow was after Civil War, but that's like a huge... that was like... that came out after Infinity War, right?
Yeah,
so,
it came out after Endgame, so it's like, geez, like so, that bitch already dead. Like, bro, what?
Yeah, like, it's so frustrating because they got too many stories that are gonna end up having to line up somewhere, but they can't do it because they don't... You know, you can't release 2 shows at the same time because then, you know, one's gonna take more be more popular than the other, or there's too many factors that could play into it to mess it up. And, you know, it's just too many factors so that they have to just release it one at a time, and that doesn't work most of the time. In this case, because there's so many different things going on, they can't have a solid release timeline for it to make sense, you know?
Like, it's just so odd, because right now I think, like, and again, I was fine when Marvel did, like, 2 movies a year. Like, that was cool. Obviously, I wanted more all the time because I was just in love with it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, once this thing ends, I have to wait, like a month, and then something else comes out. And I mean, like, to a degree, I'm happy because it's something to do, something to watch, I guess. But at that point, now it's like, am I going to like it? Am I really going to like it? And most of the time, no. Because this whole year, I genuinely think that this year and last year were, like, 2 of the worst Marvel years ever. So,
Yeah.
It's just like watching everything, especially this year. Like I've not liked anything that they've released this year, pretty much. So, I mean, I think the only thing that I like genuinely like thought was okay was like the new Thor. And even then, like, I've seen a bunch of reviews for it and no one liked it. So I feel like if I watch it again, I'm probably not going to like it either. So it's like, damn, this year, not the year for Marvel, bro.
No, and it's funny to see when you compare the first Thor movie to this one now.
Yeah.
Thor used to be a serious movie, and now it's just a bunch of jokes. Yeah. Which, if it was like that the whole time, I wouldn't have had a problem with it because I find it funny.
Yeah.
But when you take this serious character and then just turn him into just this huge jokester, it just, you had this badass god, and now he's just
nothing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He's a funny dude with electricity. I don't know.
Yeah. And like Iron Man, he's like the exact same character throughout like the whole series. And actually, like in this movie, he undergoes his character arc though. Like he starts off clearly like he's still funny, entertaining to watch, but he's a dick. Like I'm pretty like if I was hanging out with him, I would not want to hang out with him, like because he was a dick.
Right.
But like he sees like all the awful things that his company is doing, and he decides he's gonna change. So he decides to grow himself, become a better person, and get rid of all the weapons. And sure, it's weird because he makes an Iron Man suit and all that, but he still goes through a character arc, and he realizes that, oh, I'm not perfect. Sure, I can think I'm perfect, but I know that I'm not, and I need to change everything to make things better in my life. Right. And I think that's a really great character arc it goes through, and it's not just one and done in this movie. Throughout the rest of the movies, he continues to grow. He continues, he makes a lot of mistakes, and he gets better and better as he goes on. And it's just, like, weird, because like you were just saying about Thor, it's like, oh yeah, he starts off one way, becomes a different person in the next movie, becomes a different person in the next movie, because it's just very inconsistent, because even though Iron Man became like somewhat of a different person in the next movies, it was in like a good way. Like he became something different for this reason, but he still felt like the same character. But like watching the first Thor and then watching the new Thor, you would not know they're the same character. So
it's weird because you see character progression with Iron Man, but when you look at Thor's character,
it's like regression.
They're just I mean honestly, they're just changing his character. They're not progressing it anyway. You don't see any points where he would change his personality. So when he does, it just feels like he's a completely different person because you don't get to see him grow and change into that. You just see it change. So
it's just sad.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marvel. Thanks for fucking up everything now. But yeah. Alright, so that was a little bit of a tangent there, but don't worry about it, guys. Alright, so, yeah, Iron Man. I'd give this one a 10 out of 10. This one is great. What would you?
Honestly, yeah. Yeah, I'm agreeing with that. I mean, I was thinking, it's not perfect, obviously.
Oh, no.
So, I was thinking more 9.8, but, So, I definitely think it's a great movie, and, obviously it's the start to one of the greatest, like, franchises ever, so, obviously, 10, again, you said 10 out of 10, so, I'll just stick with 10 out of 10, make it easy, nice and clean number. So, again, I've seen this so many times that I thought, I'm not going to enjoy it, but I really enjoyed it, so I would definitely watch it again.
Yeah.
Because it's still, it holds up. It over the years, it really has just... I mean, there's been memes made of it, but that hasn't even tainted the movie itself.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Like Spider-Man has, and, But, again, I'd watch it more than once, so...
Yeah. For, like, Spider-Man, too. Like, it's just weird, because watching those are funny, but unintentionally, it feels like. It's just a little too campy. This one is, like, intentionally funny. Like, they're making jokes to like get you to laugh, but they're not like they're doing it in like a way that like they know what they're doing. But in, like the other Spider-Man ones, it just felt like they were just like, I'm gonna say some fucking funny shit, just because. Like I don't. There's no reason for it. It's just like here's some random stuff that you kids can make into memes in 30 years. Jesus. But in this one, it just feels intentional. So it's just like, again, like I'm like you. I've seen this movie since I was 5 or 6 years old, and God knows I've seen this movie hundreds of times. But I'll still watch it again. I'll watch it probably hundreds of more times in the future because it's just that good.
Yeah.
But like compared to everything else that we've previously seen, like I'd rewatch the X-Men movies eventually. Just because, just why not? I haven't seen those ones as much as everything else, so like, I'll rewatch those. Spider-Man, like we said last week, I genuinely don't think I'm ever gonna watch any of those movies again. So it's just like, it's just so weird because compared to like, because even like though X-Men and Spider-Man felt like different movies, they still felt like very similar in like their tones and styles and shit. But this one's just completely different from all the other ones that we've seen in a much, much better way. So it's just so interesting to me that we had like 6 movies we've seen so far that were all not the best but still felt very similar to legit a year later to this. So it's like, oh my god.
It's really interesting to see how just the way you cast a movie can change everything.
Oh yeah.
And it's weird to see that a movie made 1 year apart can hold up so much differently in this day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so weird. It's just people like it different, and that's what makes it go far, I guess. So
because again, Spider-Man 3 a year before this. What? Like that's so weird. It's like that's a
so
movie that I hate, and this one's a movie that I love. So it's just like, well, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
This is so interesting. But yeah, so I think that's all I got on this one.
Yeah.
So Iron Man, fantastic movie, definitely at the top of my list so far.
Yep.
And so next week we're gonna be moving into the Incredible Hulk, and that one is gonna be interesting because that movie came out I think like a month after this one. To be honest with you.
Oh really?
Yeah, because I'll look it up. This one came out on May 2nd of 2008. And Incredible Hulk came out June 13th. So it's like,
I see.
It's like, that's interesting.
And this is all. The Incredible Hulk is a movie I have not seen, so I am looking forward to that.
And it's a movie I've seen once, so it's like, I don't remember anything about it, and I'm like, it works out now because She-Hulk's going on right now. So now that we are gonna watch this, it's like, now we'll understand a little bit more about like the Hulks and stuff going on there, and I'm interested now, especially because I remember watching it and not really liking it that much, but after seeing everybody talk about how like shitty Hulk is now and how shitty She-Hulk is, and how shitty they're turning Abomination into, I'm like, was the Incredible Hulk really as bad as everybody said compared to like what's going on now? So, I'm really excited for it.
Definitely, yeah.
Alright, so, thank you all very much for watching this review of Iron Man. Definitely, if you somehow live and have never seen this movie before, please go see it. It is fantastic. Oh, here there it is. Alright, so...
like an hour later.
Yeah, I know. Alright, so, next week we're going to be tackling the 2008 Incredible Hulk. So if you want to see that, make sure to like this video, comment, subscribe, all that shit, and tune in next Wednesday for the Incredible Hulk. So, see you all later.
Bye-bye.